Say his name and he appears. I believe in Joe Veleno. Hell yeah, baby. You do not know how happy I am to be able to sit here in my computer chair and talk about this name as a potential Montreal Canadiens player to be, and a guy who has earned a lot of positive fanfare over the past few days. Because, ladies and gentlemen, Joe Veleno has been one of the most surprising Montreal Canadiens players in the preseason so far, and he's been so good that we are starting to ask the question as to whether or not the Red Wings made a mistake. Okay, no, we're not going to go that far, I hope, but I did want to highlight a lot of the contrast here, because for me personally, not only am I a really big fan of Joe Veleno, the player, and I have been a fan of this guy ever since 2018 when he was drafted, but I happen to be a Red Wings and Canadiens fan. So seeing this sort of development for this particular player in this particular way with these two particular teams, it's tickling all the funny bones in my body and getting me to really get antsy into talking about this. Because Joe Veleno was a guy who suited up for the Montreal Canadiens in their most recent win over the Toronto Maple Leafs in the preseason yesterday. The kids are all right. Habs young guys going out there and making an impact. Unfortunately for Joe Veleno, though, he wasn't included on the NHL's game score impact card. That's kind of funny. For some reason, they're not including Bolduc, Blais, Veleno, bunch of Quebec guys. They're not included on the Montreal Canadiens rosters whenever these game score cards are updated. But that doesn't matter, because Joe Veleno is still getting his fanfare, and people are still finding ways to talk about him. Habs on Reddit had a bunch of kind of jokey tweets going out there, posting about Joe Veleno's looking for apartments on Google after today. Eric Engels went out there and posted that it was a nice night on the dot for Joe Veleno, who won 9 out of 13. Also of note, Kapanen went 50% against NHL centers. Say the percentage, Eric. Joe Veleno was 69% on the face-off dot tonight. You then had folks going out there and saying that Veleno isn't really a lock, but this was from a few days ago. Then you also had the Habs Digest guys going out there and saying that Veleno looks NHL caliber tonight for sure. Team best 67% face-off percentage, playing the PK, and he's making a lot of smart plays. We very much like his game. Now the real kicker came when Jeff Merrick went out there and posted this. If Montreal can unlock Joe Veleno, look out. Now, Merrick absolutely has a flair for the dramatic whenever he goes out there and makes statements or makes comments about how players are good. And this is no different. If Montreal can unlock Joe Veleno, who has been shackled and tattered from what he was supposed to be, then he can be the knight in shining armor to save the Montreal Canadiens. And then some of the replies. I've heard drawing water from rocks is pretty easy this time of year. We also had the LeBron James give, going out there and, oh yeah, we're really scared of Joe Veleno, folks. Oh, they're going to unlock a 25-point season out of this guy. And I understand why some folks might satirically look at the Joe Veleno conversation and be like, come on, Lego. Like, what are you talking about? Stevie Y making a mistake here? Is this guy really a huge underrated pickup? I mean, it's Joe Veleno after all. And that's fair. I'm not saying that this guy's Artemi Panarin. He's a free agent signing for the ages that's going to save the Habs, no. But Joe Veleno, for what he was supposed to be at the National Hockey League level, and for what he became with the Detroit Red Wings, to see him become this with the Montreal Canadiens is a huge breath of fresh air. I wanted to turn your attention to one of my favorite YouTube videos ever. This was posted by NHL Draft Central 7 years ago. It's by my friend Andy Liu, who unfortunately doesn't post many videos on NHL Draft Central anymore, but I absolutely love all the work that he has done, and I happen to have been on his channel before in the 2019 mock draft that we did with Scouching and Mrtka on defense. That was such a fun time. But this video is so dang good in explaining why Joe Veleno was a first overall projected pick. First overall in the NHL draft because all the way back in 2015, Joe Veleno was granted exceptional status, and he was the very first exceptional status player ever taken in the QMJHL. Exceptional status allowed you to play in the CHL a year before you're supposed to be able to. John Tavares got this honor. So did Connor McDavid and Aaron Ekblad. For the most part, guys generally are good if they end up getting exceptional status. It's only really Sean Day and maybe Joe Veleno who haven't really shown up and lived up to that potential. But McDavid, Ekblad, Tavares, all first overall guys. Joe Veleno was supposed to be in that conversation, and he was ranked to go somewhere in the top 10 of the NHL draft. But alas, scouts were relatively unimpressed with this guy, and momentum took a hold as he slipped all the way down to 30th overall. The reason Joe Veleno was so talented enough to get exceptional status in the first place was not because he was going to go out there and become Connor McDavid and just totally shatter everybody's point totals, but it's because Joe Veleno played such a mature, smart, and calm, cool, collected game that QMJHL scouts had no choice but to say, yeah, no, this guy's kind of ready. Not because he's so productive, but because he's just ready. Period. And that decision to give him exceptional status, in a way, I think it kind of tainted a lot of the draft stock that he had. Yes, it's true that Joe Veleno had Jonathan Taves-like qualities. This is what we talked about in our scouting report video 7 years ago on Joe. But he was never really able to take the next step with his point production. Even in Detroit, he was fine as a bottom six option, but he didn't really do much else. 28 points in 80 games, that's okay. Like, it's not world-beating, and the Red Wings kept him around for a season after. But 24-25 didn't really see Veleno do much at all. He had 10 points in 56 games, and then the Wings traded him over to Chicago in a bizarre trade for Peter Mrazek. For whatever reason, he ended up coming back over to Detroit. So for Joe Veleno to be a part of this kind of strange turn of events where he became a free agent and then all of a sudden he signed with Montreal, to see him now becoming one of the most underrated and effective Canadiens players in the preseason, a guy who might even have his ticket to a center spot booked because he's left-handed, it's a pretty exciting story here. This is what Lane Hudson went out there and said about Joe Veleno. He's hungry, and with the way he skates, the way he puck hunts, the skill he has is pretty unique. He's a good addition for sure. It's exciting to see what he's been able to do. And so, to answer the question that's in the title of this video, no, I don't think that Steve Yzerman made a mistake with Veleno. I think that he had a lot of time in Detroit to fix his game and become what he was supposed to become. It's just that never really worked out for him in Motown. And I'd say that in losing his contract and becoming a free agent and signing with his hometown Montreal Canadiens, there's got to be a new spark there for Veleno the player, igniting some of the best qualities of his game and bringing it to the forefront for the fans at the Bell Center. I ultimately think he's going to make the team based off of how he's played so far. I mean, goodness forbid the guy gets sent down before this video is public on YouTube, but I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about Joe Veleno and his his player profile for the Montreal Canadiens heading into this upcoming year? Likes if you liked this video are appreciated. Dislikes are also appreciated too. Comments help out with the algorithm. I hope you enjoyed this Mrtka 99. And bye.